What if God was one of us? As I thought about this, and I'll end with the talk with this idea, what if God was all of us? That's how we generally think of it. Because if we start thinking of God as one of us, then we're going to have the same problem of separation that we do now with God up in the sky. But this is the song, I think, as I watched several interviews of Joan Osborne did not write it, but she did a wonderful job of singing it. But the guy that wrote it told his story about how it came about and what he was thinking about and so on. And he was simply wanting to pose a question to get people to think a different way about God. It doesn't necessarily mean that he embraces that. I was reading about Joan Osborne's philosophy and so forth. She's very much one of us. You know, she's into the mystical way of thought, and she said one of the great inspirations of hers was Walt Whitman, who is also one of mine. I have read Walt Whitman for years and appreciate his insights and the insights of any mystic that has stood up. So the song comes out of a different perspective than the mainstream. And that's always a good thing to not to necessarily try to compete with it or to even challenge it, but to challenge us to think a different way about something we've grown up with. And of course, we're used to that in this particular community. But to the Jewish mind of Jesus' day, claiming oneness with God was a crime punishable by stoning. And that's kind of hard to believe, but when you understand how the religious business was set up, this makes perfect sense. Because saying that you're one with God or saying God is within you is a complete threat to the potential revenue and control of the religious system. So to the Jewish mind of Jesus' day, claiming oneness with God was a crime punishable by stoning. That the foundation of his message was oneness with God probably contributed to his conviction in the Jewish court. I don't think there's much doubt about that. They seemed to be looking for just about anything they could find to go after him. And this was one they brought up. You know, they said that it wasn't for your good works that we're going to stone you, it was for claiming you're equal with God or the same as God. And I don't know that Jesus ever said, I'm the same as God. He said, the Father in me, I'm in the Father's in me, but the Father is greater. That's exactly what we say. That I talked about last week, the sponge in the ocean. You know, the ocean is in the sponge is in the ocean, but obviously the ocean is greater. But it's expressing through that avenue. And so we would never claim that we are God in the sense that we're encompassing the whole of God, because God is everywhere present. It is beyond our individual expression. But we are one with that. There's no place where that universal leaves off and we, the individual, begin, except in our perception. And the reason we have developed the perceptions that we have, and even the limitations and even the belief in separation from God, is because in a physical body it feels like we're separate. It feels like we're all separate. That's why we have all these separate chairs. I don't think you would enjoy having just one chair and all you have to sit on each other's laps. We are separate individuals at the human level. That's just a fact. But that does not change the source, doesn't change the nature of the universal source. So as we go within ourselves, as we back up and get beyond that personal sense of self, then we open ourselves to the universal. And that's where we find our unity, not only with God, but with all living forms, all people, all things. So to claim oneness with God back then interrupted the whole setup, because that was, as I have explained, the priest would go into the Holy of Holies. That's where God would come down once a year and communicate, and the priest would make sacrifices for the people and so on. It was a setup where if this idea was caught on that God is in you, not in this Holy of Holies, but is everywhere and primarily centered in you, that takes away a lot of the steam of that whole mindset. It takes away the power, because you don't need the priesthood then. And actually, I would not say we don't need the priesthood. We don't need ministers. We don't need teachers. We don't need books. I wouldn't say any of that, because these things should remind us of what is true, because it's so easy to forget in our day-to-day living. There's so many things that pop up in our experience that can make us forget our oneness with God. And, you know, all you have to do is drive down the street and encounter some near-death experience, you know, in your car to realize that people are separate, that we are all running around in our different directions and so on, and sometimes we clash. But that doesn't change what is true at the deep level. So we need that reminder, because there are so many, and to me, the whole religious system, if it is to work properly, as I've said before, it becomes an educational system, a reminder. And I like what I heard one guy say that had a near-death experience. I heard it just this morning, in fact. He said, "We're not here to learn. We're here to remember. We're here to remember who we are." And that's what he said struck him the most in his whole experience. He said, "I knew all of this stuff I was experiencing, somehow it felt like I was home. It felt like it was natural. It felt like this is where I belong, and I never want to leave it." And he said, "I realized that we're here not to learn, but to remember whatever triggered his experience of familiarity." And we get so far away from that it seems like something that we have to learn because we don't know it. We don't have it up here in our brain. We don't have it in the intellectual side. We have it on the soul side. We have it in the spiritual side. And that's where we need to drop into and reconnect with that consciously, make a conscious reconnection with that. Emma Curtis Hopkins or Evelyn Underhill said that the practice of mysticism is simply living with conscious union with the infinite. And what is that? What is the infinite? We live in it. It's like an ocean. It's a field of energy. It is the source of all living things. It's not something that's going to come. The kingdom is not coming. It's already here. And the process is not learning about it, it's remembering it. It's remembering that we're already in that. It is in us. So that was a problem for the mainstream Jew. It's a problem for the mainstream Christian. To think that God is not coming someday, the kingdom is not coming someday, it's already here. Well, how do we reconcile that? And what does that mean in terms of Jesus died for our sins and that whole story that we have found so important? It kind of erases a lot of the traditional ways of thinking when it comes to religion. And so what we conclude, most of us, is that my religion will be my religion. I will think this through. I will listen to myself. I will follow my own guidance. We come to that point eventually. Because as I have said many times, the Bible is written from the point of view that we're separate from God, that Jesus is the intermediary. I don't think Jesus taught that if the kingdom is within you, if you are to go into your inner room, shut the door, and pray to your Father who's in secret, what's that mean? What's your inner room? What is this room? It's a deeper level of awareness. It's coming out of that census-based consciousness where most of us live most of the time, dropping into this place where we have a direct revelation, a direct experience of this deeper reality. With her 90s hit song, One of Us, Joan Osborne met with similar resistance from mainstream Christian groups. While the song takes a rather human view of God, it has the effect of bringing the abstract notion of God into the human experience. And that's what one of the interviews I saw with her, she explained they would have these concerts in Europe or somewhere, and they would be picketed by the traditional Christians who did not want people singing about what if God was a slob like one of us. That's struck them as sacrilegious, I guess. But when you think about your own spiritual journey, can anyone offend you about your beliefs? Can anyone say that you're wrong and you're going to go home upset about it? You know why you've come to where you've come. It's a natural evolution. It's a natural awakening within you. You started asking questions, and your old perspective didn't give you the answers you needed. And so you branched out. You started thinking. You picked up a new wineskin that was able to stretch, that was able to be filled with new ideas. And you listened to someone that wrote a book, or you listened to someone that spoke from a pulpit or from a podium someplace, or from a cassette tape, remember those things? You got some information from somebody that stirred something deeper in you, and you listened to that. So I can have people say to me that you're off base, and I get that fairly regularly through some comments on YouTube and through my blog. There's always somebody trying to straighten me out, trying to get me back into compliance with mainstream thinking. And I used to would say, but I'm okay, and now I don't even do that. I just I just delete them, because I'm not interested in that conversation. And no one's going to change my mind except my own experience. I'm open and receptive to new ideas, but I'm not open and receptive to ideas I've given up years ago, because I gave them up. So why would anybody think I would be interested? Well, they would not know the path I'm on. And I've always said that in unity, people tend to allow others to be on whatever path they want to be on, but others don't always allow us to be on whatever path we want to be on. And that's one of the differences. It's like people have brought up this idea, could all religions ever come together? And the answer I come up with is probably not. Because we're coming from two different paradigms. One believes that we're separate from God. The other believes we are one with God. And it's like the railroad tracks. When you look to the horizon, it looks like they come together. But if you just walk those railroad tracks, you'll find the two rails never do meet, because they're two completely different things. So we've got the mainstream religion is based on a paradigm of separation. It believes and depends on us being separate from God. If we're not, it throws out the whole kingdom of heaven system, the whole sin and salvation thing. If God never left, if we've always been totally immersed in God and that's an unconditional condition, then there's no need for forgiveness, there's no need for confession, there's no need for repentance, there's no need for any of the things that run the mainstream thinking. But we are constantly looking at that ourselves and saying, how do I deal with this? How do I utilize this? How do I put this into practical application? How do I understand this in my daily life? So there's always going to be people that think God's out there someplace, and there's always going to be those, and that'll be the minority, that understand God is within. That's the mystic. And the writers of the Gospels were not mystics. They didn't seem to understand mysticism. They seemed to actively squelch it whenever they found examples of it because Jesus' sayings are full of it. But they always modify the sayings to make sure we are left with this idea that Jesus is the special one and God's up there someplace or someplace other than where we are. That's always the intention. And so you cannot, and there have been people that, myself included, that have said, well, the Bible was written as a metaphysical treatise. Was not intended to be taken literally. I've changed my mind on that. It was intended to be taken literally. We can see into it, we can see deeper levels into it, but the writers themselves were not metaphysicians. They were evangelists. They were mainstream Christian thinkers. That's how we would think of them today. Although back in their day, I don't know if they were called Christians yet by then or not. But they were literalists. And they were painting, we have 4 paintings, 4 pictures of Jesus that are very intentional, very deliberate. Son of God, Savior of humankind, crucified, he'll come back, fix everything. That's the picture they paint. That is the picture they intended for the reader to take literally. That we can read metaphysically into it, that we can see a deeper level of meaning. You can do that with anything. You can do that with a newspaper. Depends on who's looking at it. 10 people can look at one story and see it in 10 different ways. Or dream interpretation, that's probably closer, a better analogy. Say I have a dream and I get up here and I'm brave enough to share that with you. I'm not, but just say I am. So I would ask you, what does that mean? And you would all give me examples from things you've read or just feelings you have from what I say or whatever, you'll interpret it. So who's right? Which one would be right? The interpretations would all be different. And they would be fitting to wherever you're coming from. But when we look at the Bible, we can interpret it, and we can interpret it in many ways. But that is not what the writers intended. They intended for us to take it literally. And coming out of Unity in my ministerial training, that is blasphemous almost to say that. But I have come to that realization because my nose is in the Bible every day. So I'm working on my book and I'm asking all these questions of myself and looking at what was the intention of this writer. It's very clear what the intention was. It's to show Jesus in a particular perspective. That's the point. But the question is that how Jesus saw himself? And that's a whole different thing. And that's what I think is fun. That's the fun part, is let's see if we can hear the voice of Jesus. The voice of the evangelist is very loud. The voice of Jesus is very quiet. I think I'm going to call my book The Still Small Voice of Jesus and call attention to that. Of all the voices in the Bible, Jesus, or in the Gospels, Jesus' voice is the quietest. The voice of the mystic is the quietest. But we can hear it. When you learn how to hear it, when you learn the genre of mysticism, you'll see it. You'll see when he's talking from an inner perspective, and you'll resonate with that. And probably what most of us have done, if you go through your Bible, if you're a highlighter, and some people think it's sacrilegious to highlight your Bible, but it's not, because it's not, didn't fall down from heaven. If it did, I wouldn't highlight, but you look at the things you highlight, and those are the things that you resonate with. But if you read the context that a lot of these things are in, you'll find that doesn't resonate so much. So that's how we understand we've got 2 different things going on here. And it's a very important thing to see. Many people picture God as having an existence somewhere in the distant realm. We want to think of God as the creative life force, the vital essence of every living thing. Most importantly, we want to think of God as centered in the core of our being. This is old stuff to all of us. But I still like that phrase, creative life force, because it's this creative activity that's going on all the time. It's the life energy, and it's a force. It never stops. and it's present all the time, and it's centered in each one of us. And through our busy day, we get lost in the census-based observations that we're making all the time. We call that reality. The time will come when we will see that that is a construct. It is a perception that we've carried around. We've called it reality, and it's not. There's a deeper reality. There's a deeper truth that is available to all of us. So don't feel bad if you have not stuck your toe in that infinite ocean yet, if you haven't had a direct experience. All of us have actually had a direct experience. And what I'd like to remind us, if you've been dissatisfied with the direction your life is going, you've heard the voice of God. It is the way it wakes you up. It's saying, there's got to be more to life than this. And I have been in counseling with so many people over the years who were in a crisis because they had reached the end of their belief system. Nothing in their belief system would solve their problem. And where you could say, well, that's a hard place to be, we would say it's a necessary place to be, because there's no belief system that encompasses the infinite. I've said before, what is space? What is outer space? It's a concept to us. And when people start talking about light years, billions of light years, billions of galaxies, we can't even comprehend it. It's a concept that we carry around in our mind. We think we understand space. Well, we'll never define it. We'll never encompass it. And I think it's really interesting. The further out we go, the more we understand about it. And actually, we don't have to go far out. We're in it. We're in outer space. Did you know that? You remember the picture that Voyager sent back of the Earth, the little blue dot? I wrote a song about that, One World, years ago. But that, as the scientists pointed out, it changed our whole perspective. We are in outer space. We're already there. And we're acting like it's something else. But we're engaged in it right now. If we weren't, we wouldn't be here. But yes, we're curious about what's beyond, what's out there. But religiously, we should have that same curiosity. You know, the solar system, religious solar system that most of us live in is a very literal, we're here, God's up there, and we kind of leave a lot of things out. You know, what if those UFOs actually are real? You know, what if that is true? It kind of throws a wrench in the whole thinking about the Genesis story and all the beginning of things. I thought this little blue dot was the first thing. You know, I thought that's the center of the universe. We don't know what the center of the universe is. It looks like, according to some astronomers, that the center is everywhere. And that they say that no matter where you look, everything looks like it's going away, no matter where you look. So what does that mean? What is dark matter? What is dark energy? They say it makes up 80% of the universe, but they don't even know what it is. So how could anybody say, I know the truth? I know my mind encompasses the whole correct story. Jesus said, you'll know the truth and the truth will make you free. And what is that? It means there's no end. It means that we are now in infinity, so stop trying to define it. That's what sets you free. It's the freedom from defining, freedom from trying to figure everything out from our senses perspective and opening ourselves to something else. Because God is in all of us. We are all expressions of that. If God becomes a stranger on the bus, this is the shortcoming of the song. If God becomes a stranger on the bus, and I'm not on that bus, then I'm here and God is not. However, The purpose of engaging in such reflections is not to run aground in problems with literal interpretations. I consider the idea of God being present in my life at this moment, actively involved right on my level. How would I think of my life if this were true? So you're going through your life, your daily life, and say you're not having such a great day. Well, what would your day be like if you knew God was present? Or you remembered God was present? How would things change? Would they change? And they obviously would, if we truly grasped that idea and made it a practical part of that experience. One near-death experiencer said that he met a being of light whose telepathically transmitted voice he instantly recognized as the intuitive voice he'd heard all of his life. What if we acknowledged the countless ways through which we're connected to God's guidance and inspiration? Might we not pay a little closer attention to that stranger on the bus? This thought is a powerful point of contemplation. I am in God, and the full light of God shines through me and through all people and things in my life. So what if that were true? What if we realize God is everywhere present, and specifically where I am? And I'm going through a life experience that's not so great, doesn't feel so good. But if God were here, if God were part of this experience, would I not see it differently? I did not ride with strangers on a bus this week, but I sat with some people in a waiting room at the Social Security office. It occurred to me that each one had a unique story to tell, a journey that had brought them to that moment. As I waited for my number to be called, I thought how interesting it would be to have everyone share their story, instead of just stare at the floor or the ceiling or the wall or whatever. You know, when you're in that, you've all been there, right? Most all of you, you're all old and retired, got all that stuff. So we all wind up, in that place. And all the pictures on the wall that are advertising Social Security, these people are all happy. The pictures, they're all smiling and they're just really happy to be waiting for the next number to be called. But when you look at the actual people that are in the waiting room, they look like they're on death row. They look like that's the last place in the world they want to be. So I thought it would be kind of fun to just take this crowd, take this audience, and start asking, who are you? Where are you from? And start getting to know people, because every single one of us, we have a story. We have something to say. And if that had occurred, I didn't want to get thrown out for doing something like that in the first place. It's just, they have rules about being quiet and shutting your phones off and all that stuff. But just to quietly think of everyone in there has come to this place from their own journey, and they've all got a story to tell that would be quite interesting, I'm sure. And it would sure be a lot more fun than just sitting there waiting to be listening to people and talk. But the thing is, what if God is in all of us? And that type of experience would change the nature of that event. Just for me to sit there quietly and look at each one of these people and give them a blessing, that in itself changed the way I felt about that situation. It was like, I'm not here because I don't want to be here. I don't want to have to do this waiting. This is an opportunity to do something else, to actually give a blessing, to be a part of something that people, may not even know they won't even know it's going on. But why should I not have some kind of a better experience than just waiting for the next event to happen? And how often do we do that in life? How often are we waiting for the next event? The mainstream Christian has been waiting for the big event for a long time, and it still hasn't happened. So maybe we ought to get busy in the meantime and say, maybe God's already here. Maybe the kingdom's already here. Maybe there's something we can do to make this experience better. maybe there's a prayer we can say or a feeling we can have for the situation. So I didn't suggest this idea to the group, but I silently offered each person a blessing, wishing them peace and success in their ongoing journeys. I will never know if this simple prayer had any impact. What I know is that the experience prompted me to ponder a different question. What if God is in all of us? So God is in all of us. There's no what if in my mind about it. But what do we do with it? And I think that's a simple illustration to say there's always something we can do about it. We're in a situation we don't particularly like. Is there anything we can give? Is there any way we can give to this situation? Even if we don't get up and shake somebody's hand or give them a hug or whatever, if it's a quiet thing, they say when a person is on their deathbed and you are standing by their bed, that they may very well know what you're thinking, very well know what you're going through, your experience. So if we know that on that level, if that's a possibility, why not now? Why not when we're all fully conscious? Even if we are thinking about something else, even if we don't know what exchange is going on with the soul all the time. And so why not become a giver in any situation that we're in? So what if God was one of us? God is all of us. Thank you for watching this week's program. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we appreciate your help. We have many subjects in our video lineup, so feel free to take a look. If there's a topic you don't see and would like me to address, just put it in the comment section. I'd love to know what's on your mind. To subscribe to this channel, simply click our logo. Thanks again for your interest in independent unity, and have a wonderful week.